234 local. Taiwan Strait, 71 nautical miles southwest of the Penghu Islands, 48 nautical miles from Chinese territorial waters on the Fujian coast. International waters, disputed in claim, undisputed in legal status under UNCLOS. Sea state, rough. Swells at 3.1 meters from the northeast, wind at 22 knots, overcast at 800 feet, rain reducing visibility to 2.1 nautical miles. The strait in winter is not a comfortable place. It is also not a place where you can hide what you are doing from a ship with a functioning radar. USS Mustin, DDG-89, Arleigh Burke Class Flight 2, a destroyer, was conducting a Taiwan Strait transit, a routine passage through international waters that the US Navy had conducted repeatedly over the preceding 3 years, each time over formal Chinese protest, each time without incident. Tonight was the 43rd transit. The ship was northbound at 17 knots, standard transit speed, running lights on, AIS transmitting. There was nothing covert about the passage. That was the point. The contact picture at 234 was dense and deliberate. 6 plan, Type 05, 2D. Luoyang 3 class destroyers were operating in 2 groups. 3 to the northwest at 31 nautical miles. 3 to the southeast at 27 nautical miles. They had been shadowing Mustin since she entered the strait at 22:09 the previous evening. The geometry was a corridor. Mustin was threading between 2 plan formations that had positioned themselves with precision, not close enough to constitute an intercept, close enough to make the data link picture uncomfortable. A plan Type 055 cruiser was holding at 44 nautical miles to the north, outside the immediate formation, but within its weapons employment range. Its Type 346 BAESA fire control radar had been intermittently illuminating Mustin since 117. The illuminations were brief, 3 to 7 seconds, spaced at irregular intervals. An old technique, updated. The goal was not targeting. The goal was psychological. Remind the ship's crew, once an hour, that they were being held in someone else's fire control solution. At 2:34, the illumination came again. 3 seconds. The SLQ-32 logged it. The TAO noted it. Routine harassment. At 2:34:41, something changed. The SLQ-32 registered a new emission, not from the Type 055 to the north, from the Fujian coast, 48 nautical miles to the west. A YJ-21 fire control radar. The YJ-21 is a hypersonic anti-ship missile, a derivative of the CM-401 family, carried by PLAN surface combatants and coastal batteries. Its fire control radar has a specific emission signature that the SLQ-32 threat library had been updated to recognize 4 months earlier, after intelligence indicated operational deployment of the coastal variant along the Fujian coast. The emission was active. It was tracking Mustin. At 2:34:55, the SPY-1D acquired 2 launches from the Fujian coast, 2 tracks, both bearing 278, range 48 nautical miles. Velocity, Mach 4.0 and accelerating. Ballistic loft phase, initial climb to 40 kilometers altitude. Classification confirmed in 1.9 seconds. YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missile. Scramjet-powered maneuvering re-entry vehicle. Terminal phase estimated at Mach 6.0 to Mach 8.0 with unpredictable lateral maneuver capability. Time to impact at computed trajectory. 6 minutes, 14 seconds. The TAO called General Quarters at 2:34:58. From first detection to alarm, 3 seconds. The YJ-21 was not a Noor. It was not a Birkin 3. It was not a weapon that any US surface combatant had engaged in a live operational setting. The SM-6 had a demonstrated intercept capability against ballistic missiles in the loft and re-entry phase, against a maneuvering hypersonic glide vehicle in terminal phase at Mach 6.0, performing lateral evasion maneuvers at velocities that exceeded the SM-6's own kinematic envelope in the terminal intercept geometry. The engagement math was not comfortable. 6 minutes, 14 seconds, Mach 4.0 and climbing. 2 missiles. Mustin's VLS inventory for this transit: 24 SM-6, 20 SM-2 MR, Block 3B, 16 ESSM quad-packed, 28 Tomahawk, 8 cells reserved. The SM-6 was the only system with a credible engagement solution against a hypersonic ballistic target. Maximum salvo for the engagement: all 24 SM-6 rounds if required. The TAO designated both tracks Priority 1 at 2:34:59, 1 second after general quarters. Aegis computed engagement solutions in 2.3 seconds. The geometry was constrained by one factor that made this engagement different from every previous ballistic missile intercept in the ship's history. 6 planned destroyers were within 31 nautical miles on both sides, and the Type 055 was 44 nautical miles north. The SM-6's engagement flight path against targets bearing 278 would take the interceptors across the bearing to the northern plan group. The fire control system was managing the geometry of an active ballistic missile engagement while surrounded by 6 hostile surface combatants on 2 sides and a cruiser to the north. SM-6 rounds 1 and 2 away at 02:35:14. Against Track Alpha, loft-phase intercept, computed engagement altitude 38 kilometers, 16 seconds from detection to first interceptor away. SM-6 rounds 3 and 4 away at 02:35:19. Against Track Bravo, loft-phase intercept, SM-6 rounds 5 and 6 away at 2 hours, 35 minutes, and 24 seconds. Follow-on engagement against Track Alpha, insurance salvo. SM-6 rounds 7 and 8 away at 02:35:29. Follow-on engagement against Track Bravo. 8 SM-6 rounds committed. 16 seconds from detection to first round. 31 seconds from detection to last round of the first salvo. The engagement clock was running. The 6 planned destroyers did not maneuver. They held their positions. They were watching. At 2:37:44, 2 minutes and 50 seconds after launch, SM-6 round 1 reached the computed intercept point at 36 kilometers altitude. Track Alpha at this point was in its late loft phase, transitioning to re-entry glide. The SM-6's active seeker acquired the target at 14-kilometer intercept range and guided to impact. Detonation: Track Alpha. Intercept confirmed at 2:37:44. The radar return fractured and dispersed. Debris tracked briefly, then lost. SM-6 round 3 reached Track Bravo at 2 hours 37 minutes and 51 seconds. 7 seconds after the Alpha intercept. Engagement altitude: 33 kilometers. The Bravo missile had initiated its glide phase 2 seconds earlier than computed. A pre-programmed trajectory variation designed to complicate simultaneous intercept timing. The SM-6's seeker reacquired after a 0.4-second track interruption and guided to detonation. Track Bravo. Intercept confirmed at 2:37:51. 2 YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles. 2 SM-6 intercepts. Loft phase engagements before the missiles entered their terminal maneuvering phase. Rounds 5, 6, 7, and 8 were commanded to self-destruct at 2:38:04. The loft phase intercept had been the correct call. The Aegis engagement algorithm had computed that waiting for terminal phase engagement, attempting to intercept a Mach 6.0 maneuvering glide vehicle in the final 30 seconds of flight, carried an estimated intercept probability of 34%. Loft phase intercept probability against a non-maneuvering ballistic target at 36 kilometers altitude: 81%. The TAO had chosen the geometry where the math worked. It worked, but the engagement had expended 8 SM-6 rounds. Mustin's remaining SM-6 inventory: 16 rounds. She was surrounded by 6 planned destroyers and a Type 055 cruiser. If the plan chose to follow with a second wave, and the 6 destroyers each carried 64 VLS cells loaded with YJ-18 anti-ship cruise missiles. 16 SM-6 rounds and Mustin's remaining ESSM inventory would face a saturation problem with no comfortable solution. The ship was operational. The threat picture had not resolved. 2 missiles had been neutralized. 6 warships were still at 31 nautical miles on 2 sides, and a cruiser was at 44 miles to the north. The TAO reported to the captain at 2:38:10. The captain reported to 7th Fleet at 2:38:44. The report stated, 2 YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles launched from the Fujian coast in international waters of the Taiwan Strait, both neutralized by SM-6 loft-phase intercept. Ship fully operational. 6 planned surface combatants within 31 nautical miles, Type 055 at 44 nautical miles. SM-6 inventory reduced to 16 rounds. Requesting authorization for response and requesting immediate reinforcement. Both requests were acknowledged at 2:40. What happened in the next 4 minutes inside 7th Fleet's command structure was the operational answer to the question the plan had been asking for 3 years with its Taiwan Strait harassment operations. What does the US actually do when you fire at one of their ships in the strait? The answer was already pre-computed. Target package transmitted to strike assets at 2:41:17. Site Alpha, YJ-21 coastal battery, Fujian coast, confirmed launch origin. Fixed installation, coordinates and database since month 4 of planned coastal deployment. 2 launch rails fired. Status of remaining rails, unknown. Assessed 2 to 4 reloads possible. Site Bravo, YJ-21 fire control radar installation, co-located with Site Alpha fire control node. The Type 346B variant radar that had been tracking Mustin since 117. The same system whose fire control emission had given 19 seconds of warning before the launch. Site Charlie. Planned Coastal Defense Command Facility, 14 kilometers inland from Site Alpha. The facility whose authorization signal had been intercepted on a monitored frequency at 2:34:39, 16 seconds before the launches. The command node that had given the fire order, Site Delta. A second YJ, 21 battery position, 22 nautical miles north of Site Alpha. Assessed from NRO imagery as a reload-capable installation with an independent fire control radar. Not the battery that had fired. The battery that could fire next. Site Echo. Plan undersea cable relay station on the Fujian coast, 31 nautical miles south of Site Alpha. The station routed encrypted command communications between the Coastal Defense Network and the Plan Eastern Theater Command. Neutralizing it would degrade the command link between remaining coastal batteries and their authorization chain. USS Antietam, CG-54, was holding 140 nautical miles south of Mustin in the southern strait approaches. Tomahawk launch authorization received at 2:41:30. The Sullivans, DDG-68, was 190 nautical miles southwest in the East China Sea. Authorization received simultaneously. The carrier strike group, USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76, was operating 280 nautical miles east of the strait in the Philippine Sea. Air Wing launch authorization received at 2:42:00. F/A, 18E/F. Super Hornets began engine start sequence in the darkness of the flight deck. Aircraft directors in yellow jerseys, plane captains in white, ordnance men in red. The full choreography of a combat launch at 2:44. T+0. YJ-21 launches detected. 2:34. T+3 minutes. Both missiles neutralized. 2:37. T+6 minutes. Captains report to 7th Fleet. 2:40. T+7 minutes. Target package transmitted. 2:41. T+11 minutes. First Tomahawk, USS Antietam. 2:45. T+16 minutes. First F/A, 18E/F. Wheels up from Reagan. 2:50. T+57 minutes. First Tomahawk impacts Site Alpha. 3:31. T+94 minutes. F/A, 18 first wave at weapons release range. 4:08 total. From first launch detection to first adversary site neutralized. 57 minutes. The 57-minute Tomahawk flight time was a function of distance. 280 nautical miles from Antietam's position to the Fujian coast. terrain following at 880 kilometers per hour, longer than previous scenarios. The plan had positioned Mustin deep in the strait, 48 nautical miles from the coast, partly because that geometry gave their YJ-21 missiles a shorter flight time to target. The same geometry gave US Tomahawks a longer flight to the launch sites. The FA-18S from Reagan would close the gap. At military power from 280 nautical miles, transit time to weapons release range off the Fujian coast, 52 minutes. The aircraft would arrive before the second Tomahawk wave reached their targets. First Tomahawk, USS Antietam, VLS Cell 4, 245. Cost, $1.87 million. Target, Site Alpha, YJ, 21 launch battery primary rail structure. Running response cost, $1.87 million. Tomahawks 2 through 6 followed in sequence. Site Alpha reload shelter, Site Bravo fire control radar, Site Charlie command facility primary building, Site Charlie communications annex. Running cost, $11.2 million. Tomahawks 7 through 14 from Antietam and The Sullivans, Site Delta. Second battery rails and radar, Site Echo cable relay station, Site Alpha access road denial, Site Delta access route. Running cost, $26.1 million. As the Tomahawks were in flight, the 6 planned destroyers made their decision. At 2:52, 18 minutes after the YJ-21 launches, the northern group of 3 Type 052D destroyers turned northwest and increased speed to 24 knots. The southern group held for 4 additional minutes, then turned southeast at 22 knots. By 300 hours, all 6 destroyers were opening range from Mustin. The Type 055 to the north had turned north at 249 and was moving away at 26 knots. The planned surface forces were withdrawing, not fleeing. Withdrawing. There is a difference. They were repositioning outside the engagement radius of whatever was coming, because whatever was coming was already in the air, and they had computed the timelines. The YJ-21 launch from the Fujian coast had been a test. The plan's operational staff had debated for months whether the US would respond kinetically to a strike in the strait, or whether it would absorb the engagement diplomatically. The debate had been unresolved. The 43rd Transit had resolved it. At 3:31, 57 minutes after the first launch detection, the first Tomahawk reached Site Alpha, round 1 on the primary launch rail structure. Post-engagement imagery via MQ-4C. Triton surveillance at 55,000 feet confirmed structural collapse of the rail housing at 3:31:44. Round 2 on the reload shelter. Secondary event from stored propellant. Thermal bloom sustained for 53 seconds on the Triton's electro-optical feed. The YJ-21 battery that had fired at USS Mustin was assessed as functionally eliminated at 03:32:17. Running cost at this point, $11.2 million. Site Alpha assessed replacement value, $420 million. 6 to 9 years under current export control constraints on high-temperature scramjet component manufacturing. The 2 YJ-21 rounds fired, estimated production cost $8 million each, $16 million total, had achieved 0 damage to the ship they targeted. The battery that fired them, $420 million in replacement value, eliminated for $11.2 million in Tomahawks. 0334, Site Bravo, fire control radar. 2 Tomahawks in a 6-second interval on the radar installation. The Type 346BA ESA array that had been illuminating Mustin since 117 ceased emitting permanently at 3:34:22. Its replacement would require components subject to Western export controls. Assessment: 2 to 4 years to reconstitute equivalent capability. 0337, Site Charlie, command facility. 2 Tomahawks on the primary building, 1 on the communications annex. Both primary building rounds confirmed on target. The communications annex round impacted a building that post-engagement imagery identified as a different structure than the designated annex. An adjacent equipment shed that had not been in the pre-engagement imagery. The annex itself was undamaged. The command facility's primary structure was neutralized. Its communications relay survived. This was the first fog element. 0344. Site Delta, 2nd YJ, 21 battery. 4 Tomahawks across the rail structure, radar, reload shelter, and access road. 3 of 4 rounds confirmed on target. The 4th, designated against the reload shelter, impacted the access road 80 meters short of the shelter entry point. The shelter structure was not directly impacted. Post-engagement assessment. Reload shelter status uncertain. Access road partially denied. Second fog element. 0348. Site Echo, undersea cable relay station. 2 Tomahawks. Both on target. Station confirmed inoperable at 3:48:33. The command link between the Fujian Coastal Defense Network and Eastern Theater Command was severed. The FA-18 first wave arrived at weapons release range at 4:08. Targets: 2 additional coastal radar installations north of Site Delta, and the road and rail infrastructure assessed as the primary logistics corridor for YJ-21 system resupply to both battery positions. 8J SOW munitions. 6 confirmed impacts. Both radar installations neutralized. 1J SOW missed its bridge approach target. Guidance anomaly impacted a hillside. The bridge survived. Third fog element. 2nd F/A. 18 wave at 419. 6 J dams against the assessed storage and maintenance compound 18 kilometers inland, the facility that provided technical support for the coastal battery network. All 6 on target. Compound assessed as severely degraded. At 4:31, both FA-18 formations turned east toward Reagan. All aircraft recovered. Weapons loads expended. 3 fog elements in the response. Site Charlie Communications Annex survived. Site Delta reload shelter status uncertain. 1 bridge approach survived a JSOW anomaly. 4 of 5 primary sites confirmed neutralized. Command link severed. 2nd battery degraded, but reload shelter status unconfirmed. The accounting. Plan investment. 2 YJ. 21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles at approximately $8 million each. $16 million. Fire control radar operation costs, coastal battery crew deployment, command coordination. Estimated $2 million. Total, approximately $18 million. Damage achieved, 0. Both missiles intercepted in loft phase. No contact with USS Mustin. No systems degraded. No personnel affected. The plan had spent $18 million to find out whether the US would respond kinetically to a YJ-21 launch in the Taiwan Strait. They had their answer. US response cost: 14 Tomahawks at $1.87 million, $26.2 million. 14 F/A, 18 E/F sorties, $12.6 million. 1 MQ-4C Triton surveillance sortie, $1.1 million. Total, $39.9 million. Adversary infrastructure neutralized. Primary YJ. 21 battery eliminated. Fire control radar permanently offline. Command facility primary structure neutralized. Cable relay station severed. 2nd battery degraded. Coastal radar network reduced. Logistics compound severely degraded. Assessed total infrastructure value removed, $2.3 billion. Fujian Coastal Defense YJ. 21 capability assessed at 22% of pre-engagement baseline. The plan's strategic miscalculation operated on 3 levels. First, the intercept. The planning cell had assessed that loft-phase SM-6 intercepts against YJ-21 were possible, but unlikely. The missile's trajectory variation programming was designed to complicate simultaneous engagement timing. The 0.4-second track interruption on track Bravo during its pre-programmed trajectory variation was real. The SM-6's seeker reacquired in 0.4 seconds. That reacquisition capability had been tested in the Pacific Missile Range facility 18 months earlier. The planning cell did not have that test data. Second, the response timeline. The preloaded Fujian coastal target database had been maintained at 72-hour update cycles since planned coastal YJ-21 deployment began. The 43rd transit had the same pre-computed response package as the previous 42 transits. The difference was authorization. It came in 6 minutes. Third, the political signal. The plan's operational staff had assessed that a YJ-21 engagement in the Strait would produce a U.S. diplomatic response first, and a military response, if at all, days later, following alliance consultation and legal review. The Tomahawks were in the air 11 minutes after the launches. The FA-18S followed 5 minutes after that. The plan had miscalculated the decision timeline by a factor of approximately 40. USS Mustin, DDG-89. 0 damage. All systems nominal throughout. SM-6 inventory. 16 of 24 remaining. SPY-1D all arrays nominal. Personnel. Unaffected. Ship status. Fully operational. Transit completed as planned. Mustin exited the northern end of the Taiwan Strait at 6:14 and entered the East China Sea on schedule. USS Antietam, CG-54. No damage. 10 Tomahawks expended. USS The Sullivans, DDG-68. No damage. 4 Tomahawks expended. USS Ronald Reagan, CVN-76. 14 F/A-18E/F sorties. All aircraft recovered. Total. U.S. response cost, $39.9 million. Adversary. Alpha. Primary YJ. 21 battery. Confirmed neutralized. Secondary event confirmed. Bravo. Fire control radar. Confirmed neutralized. Permanent. Charlie. Command facility primary structure neutralized. Communications annex survived. Delta. Second battery degraded. Reload shelter unconfirmed. Echo. Cable relay station confirmed neutralized. Coastal radar network. 2 of 2 additional installations neutralized. Logistics compound. Severely degraded. Fujian YJ. 21 capability. 22% of baseline. U.S. execution gaps. Site Charlie Communications Annex survived. Round impacted adjacent structure. Site Delta reload shelter unconfirmed. Round impacted access road. 1 JSOW guidance anomaly. Bridge approach survived. Command personnel disposition at Charlie. Unconfirmed. 57 minutes. The time between the first YJ-21 launch from the Fujian coast and the first Tomahawk reaching the battery that fired it. The plan had 43 transits to decide whether to fire. They chose the 43rd. The U.S. had 43 transits to maintain the pre-computed target database and the pre-authorized strike package for exactly this contingency. The Tomahawks were ready before the launches happened. 2 YJ-21 hypersonic anti-ship missiles. $16 million. 0 damage. 1 ship that kept going north at 17 knots and exited the strait at 6:14 as scheduled. 1 battery eliminated. 1 radar permanently offline. 1 command link severed. $2.3 billion in assessed adversary infrastructure removed. The 44th transit is scheduled. The database has been updated. The strait is open.